Um, Basically, they use a JUnit rule to fire up the container at the beginning of the test. You can run all your tests that happen to hit the container for things like external databases or, I don't know, ActiveMQ or pretty much anything that you can put inside of a Docker container. You can fire it up, run your tests that might need it, and then shut it down. That way you don't have to have one stood up and running all the time, waiting for you to use it to run your tests against. So that's basically the gist of it. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Most of their examples talk about standing up databases as the container that they're standing up, but it's a little odd because normally there's some more setup you need to do whenever you're going to use a database inside of a test like that. So I've done that with Maven plugins rather than using something like this, but it's another way to do it. So that's basically what test containers is. Yes? Would I use it? Possibly, maybe if I had some other services, not necessarily a database, but say an external service I needed to connect to in my code that I'm running under test. Might use it there, just stand up a temporary instance of it, so it would actually hit it and not time out or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Special cases. Anything else? Okay, cool. I'll move on to the one I'm more interested in. So the other one I have here is Quarkus. Last week we talked about Micronaut. Quarkus is in the same vein as Micronaut. Let's see, bring up their website. Actually, I was thinking about doing building a presentation, but their website pretty much covers it. So they build a supersonic subatomic Java. Basically, it's using the Graal VM, just like Micronaut is using. It builds really small artifacts that it can run. It's meant for running in Docker containers directly. I mean, you run the thing, and it's got its own web server and everything that it fires up. Yeah, so like I said, designed for container first. The main thing is you're saving a lot of memory and size when you're using it. So I mean, you look at the graphs here. Your traditional build up a WAR file, put it in a JBoss app container. It's going to take up 209 meg of memory. You use Quarkus, you've chopped that down to 105. If you build it natively, you chop it down to 28. It's crazy fast. Boot times on these things, you're sitting there waiting for your app server to come up. Oh, and then your application's got to start up. No, you java-jar, the jar file it built, boom, it's up in fractions of a second. The other main things you can do reactive programming with it. It has Vertex as its underlying way of doing communications to like ActiveMQ or even the REST endpoints you build. It's driven by Vertex. They've even got these neat little cartoons. If you're into XKCD, then the style looks familiar. They've also built in their Maven plugin, they've got this dev mode so that you fire it up with that, make your code changes, refresh your page, it reloads the app. Now the JavaScript people are sitting there going, yeah, we've had that for years, but this is great for Java. We haven't had that before. It's built on a lot of standard stuff. CDI, instead of having EJBs in it, it's CDI only. You got your dependency injection, all that good stuff that you need. And the reason why it can be as fast and as small as it is that in the compile time, it's figuring out all the dependency injection and all the stuff that reflection has that you have to use, and figures all that stuff out and just builds your artifact with all that stuff built in, and strips out all the code that you don't need. So there's sometimes you got to be careful about what you're referencing in your code, because sometimes it'll strip it out and you get to runtime, it's like, whoa, where'd it go? Let's see. Yeah, so they are completely open source on this stuff. It's all hosted out on GitHub. They have YouTube channels discussing this stuff, and actually I've pondered just playing this video from my 5-minute presentation. But let's see, they're out on, they've got a Twitter account, they have Google Groups, dev mailing list, they have a Zulip chat channel where you can talk to the developers directly. In fact, there was just, this guy's in France, and he's like one of the main ones with the releases. I'll preempt Troy's question. Would I use it? Yes, I'm using it now. We are using this right now at a client site, building REST services, and it's been fantastic. We've been able to get a lot of work done quickly. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's backed by Red Hat. So if you guys have heard it, you've heard of JBoss, and then the open source implementation, that's Wildfly. They also had Thorntail for a while. Well, Thorntail development kind of stopped, and they focused on this. So that's where it kind of came from. Let's see, what else? It's using SmallRye, which is Red Hat's implementation for microprofile stuff. It's got microprofile things all built into it. I've actually been able to contribute some stuff to SmallRye, so code I've written is in this right now. So, yeah, it's great stuff. Any questions?
So, do you think there's like a full hour presentation that you have in you on Focus?
Yeah, I could drag it out.
I guess I should ask those of you who are Java people in the room, would you be interested? I heard yes. So maybe sometime next quarter we'll try to do something like that, because I think there's a lot of interest in this and Micronaut and things that lean and quick.
Yes. So, alrighty.
What's the main thing that makes this different from Micronaut, or not different from it?
That's what I've been trying to discern myself. I think probably the main thing is that this one's built off of the standards, off the the EE standards. So it's using all of that as its starting point. Plus, it's pulled in the micro-profile stuff from the beginning, so it's fully micro-profile compliant. And it's backed by Red Hat, so a lot more people have heard of Red Hat than, I can't remember who was backing Micronaut, but it was not one of the big players in the market. So if you want to use that FUD, you can say, yeah, well, that one might die because we don't know who the company is behind it, or whatever. So, that said, they are working on some support for Spring stuff. So people are used to Spring annotations and way of doing things. They've got extensions to help ease that transition over into this as well. So, okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Test.
You don't have any UFA tattoos on your neck or anything. It's just statistically been only like two people get it.
So my talk is on Open Policy Agent, and it's a general purpose policy engine, supposed to be, and it has a declarative language of its own called Rego. Started by a company called Styra in very late 2015 and was adopted into the CNCF in March, and just recently, a couple months ago, it moved from the sandbox to incubating stage. And it is number 73 on Tech Radar, right here. Make that bigger. So the general workings, and this is all lifted and modified from Red Hat's blog. It takes JSON input, and then it evaluates it by looking at like a ACL list here or some sort of definition of like, I guess it'll make more sense later on, and then evaluate that input with the Rego policy, and then give some nice JSON output. And you can see here, we've got two files here in our folder, in our source folder, ACL and a policy. And there, this is some couple read-write privileges, and that's what Rego policy file looks like. And it comes with the CLI, and there's some of the commands. So you can run it yourself there, and there's also a nice sandbox mode online that you can write Rego and then evaluate against it. And let's see, we can start up our server and do a little demo. So here we're just putting against the ACL. This is uploading our ACL, and it's not found. Just a second. Just a second. Okay, start server up and upload it, and this demo isn't going to work. But so basically upload your ACL and your policy, and then you can test against it, and that does not work. But basically it will say access denied or allowed. Other uses, other than that really basic one, you can add user auth to do this basic user auth for the Docker daemon. You need to, I looked at the walkthrough briefly, and you need to add a config.json. I think for each user that just passes along just a piece of user information, and then you add a Docker plugin that talks to OPA, and you can do like, I'm not sure exactly the use cases for that nowadays with Kubernetes, but you can also evaluate Terraform policies like as you run them. This isn't like checking if they're correct, but this is the examples they gave were to limit blast radius of changes. And for Kubernetes, it's something that I'm actually looking to do once this Gatekeeper project is out. Kubernetes has emission controllers, whether just to allow them in for validating. They're validating emission controllers and mutating ones, and I'm looking to use it to just allow images from Amazon's registry, and to also, for Gatekeeper, you can also make it, you can also set up a mutating emission controller to change everything that you pass into it. So I was looking to make just some baseline changes to everything that comes in to Kubernetes, basically. And there is a WebAssembly compiler coming in the next version. I don't know any details about that, but it sounds like it'll make it faster. But that is OPA. OPA. And I'm also presenting on Scaffold. Okay, yeah, questions? I'm not sure. Oh, it's made to be very, very general. So anything that you can define in it, you can write rego to query against it. I probably should have included more of those. And it's not loading images, but yeah, I'm not sure what other types of things you can do with it. Yeah, Alan.
You mentioned that you can use it to prevent, like, to filter out images that can be pulled into Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned mission controller. Is this,
Yes.
if you actually use this, do you, for example, if I have custom resources in Kubernetes and I want to like validate on that, I could write like a mission controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I use this, I don't need to do that anymore. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Like I can just implement it through here and as it's called my mission controller.
That's not loading. Gatekeeper just gives you a nice interface to write those emission controllers. So yeah, you in the previous versions you could only do like the validating ones, but in version 3 you can do mutating ones to actually do baseline stuff. I wish I could show you the CRDs because they look really nice. Oh, there they go. I haven't looked at it in a little while. So you just basically write a CRD for it, and then it'll be your emission controller. Gatekeeper would be, as far as I understand. Yeah. questions? Should I move on to scaffold? Cool, move on to scaffold. Scaffold is number... Oh, I'm sorry, it is. Scaffold's number 75 here, and I tried to get a demo for it, but I failed. So it's trying to make Kubernetes development easier. I'm going to demo part of it and then talk about more. So yeah, it's expecting a Docker file and some Kubernetes manifest, and then you can just run scaffold scaffold init. And this grabbed the image from our Kubernetes manifest. It found where they actually are, and it knows the Docker file is in the root of the project, so it doesn't do any more there. But actually running scaffold dev is where it broke for me, building the image. But the idea is that you would either run Minikube or microcates locally, or point it towards a bigger Kubernetes, and it will do things like the Quarkus dev command does, and just continuously rebuilds it and deploys it. And yeah, I need to say more about it. Yeah, so maybe I'll show you here what it would be doing. So we just continually build, and then you can just start it in the background and then work on your code, and it will just continuously deploy. Kind of shortens the amount of time needed between writing your code, and then instead of pushing it through a CI/CD system to Kubernetes, you can just push it right there. And I don't think I would personally find use for it yet, because I need to run, or I'm not doing development work, but for the devs I work with, I think they would need more infrastructure set up as well alongside of this in order for it to be helpful. But it looks very nice if you're a dev working, trying to get stuff onto Kubernetes, and you just need to test things out quick.
Is that on? Awesome. Usually it's at church. I don't know how to do it. Like that? Like that? That'll stay. All right. So, let's see what this does. Not that. 54th. Yeah. The 54th Minutes. That's actually a great band name, and I'm gonna take that and give you no credit. I'm just teasing. Yeah, I'm just teasing. Okie doke. Sorry, I don't know how to do multiple screens in a way that will. Okay, I need to do this on the other screen, but not show you what I'm going to show you. I don't know how to do this. No spoilers, precisely. All right, plan B. So I signed up to do 5 things, 4 of which are on the ThoughtWorks thing. The 5th one is something that Dan and I had put together. And in all honesty, I tried to make all of these work for today. And last night about had a panic attack and asked Todd if I could do some of them next week. So just being transparent with you all. So stuff I was going to talk about today, Gatsby.js, microcates, Azure DevOps, and pipelines will come next week, and then this fancy thing called Concierge, which is what we, Dan and I put together. So let's get started. But first, I need to tell you a story. It's a story of a guy named Robbie. He's a very tidy dude. His wife was trying to make some pizza. The kids really needed some food. Until a few minutes later, when this fellow threw away the boxes, his wife knew it was him and had much more than a hunch that this guy had thrown away the instructions. How could they make lunch? The page is lunch, the page is lunch. It's a thing on the Brady Bunch. Play on the bin. Okay. I debated heavily to sing it. It's like, I don't want to. I killed Dan. Also, he said, we're going to continue this in an episode next week, so he did that without knowing the theme. All right, so I put together this whole thing about the pages lunch, and Theo brought up a great question yesterday. Why did you do all this when you could just keep the box? Keeping me honest. Anywho, so Gatsby.js. Some of this is from their site. Some of this is from, just stuff I found around the internet. It's a free and open source framework based on React that helps developers build blazing fast websites and apps. It uses React. One of the coolest things, and it took me a long time to wrap my head around it, but it uses a plugin ecosystem you can pull data from. So you can have a headless CMS, APIs, your file system, which is something I'll show off, and more, and it pulls that data right into your pages using GraphQL. It uses the Jamstack, which is JavaScript APIs and pre-rendered markup. Again, I didn't really understand that until I started playing with this thing. Instead of waiting to generate pages when requested, it pre-builds pages so that they're delivered instantly to wherever your users are. There's a CLI, we're going to use that shortly. Gatsby and React both have hot reloading, so you can make changes to the code, and the site updates automatically. And it uses GraphQL. Gatsby is big on GraphQL. You can generate pages with a component and a query. And you can take API JSON or a JSON file and create an array of pages, so let's do that. So I'm going to pull that over there, maybe. Yeah. So what this command is going to do is it's going to run Gatsby. It's going to create a new folder where I am. That's actually not where I wanted to put it, but anyways, and it's going to clone the GitHub Gatsby hello starter hello world thing, whatever. Before I do that, though, let me go to yeah. Okay, so we'll let that run. Oh, I already have a folder called that. Great. Oh, sorry. I know why. That's for next week. No spoilers. Okay, so it cloned it. It's downloading it. It's going to run the installer thing for that. So we'll sit here and watch it because it's cool. Yeah, that's the sound it makes. tell the joke? I'm wearing my Haste the Dad t-shirt. That's a dad joke in and of itself, I guess. Sorry, I didn't realize this took so stinking long. Yeah! Okay, so it's doing stuff, it's installing things, it's configuring it. So it says, your new Gatsby site has been successfully bootstrapped. Start developing by running those commands. So we'll do that. So you CD in there, Gatsby develop, it's an NPM package, the CLI is, so you can install that. Cool, and it's sitting there, building a development bundle. And then in a second, it's going to tell us to open a URL. Hello world, look, we did it. Great. That does nothing exciting, except you can go to this underscore, I think it's 3 underscores GraphQL, I don't know, and explore using GraphQL. This is like a thing built into Gatsby. So you can start writing these queries to query things from your, from your site. So you can click on site, and then you can do port and host, and then you run the query, and it tells you in JSON form, which you can use in your React component. I'm going to get data.site.port and data.site.host. That's great. That's built in. That's not super helpful. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop that for a second. So it's hard to see because it's at the bottom, but npm install, we're going to install a plugin for typography and then some other typography stuff to like format it, whatever. This is all in their sample docs, but I wanted to show you this plugin system really fast. So we're going to install that and watch this again. Really should have thought through that before I did it. While that's going, I'm going to all right. So I opened up the folder that this app is in, and so you can see here, there's a source, there's an index page, exports, default, hello world, that's what we saw before. That's where I'm going to put all of the pages and templates and stuff, just pretty standard React stuff. There's this Gatsby config file. You can configure your Gatsby site with this. So what I'm going to do is take this and replace that with this. And what this is saying is, one of the plugins I want to use is this Gatsby plugin for emotion. It's a style formatting thing, whatever. When you need to resolve the typography, so that's kind of like a standard one. If it needs a little bit more help, or you want to tell it a little bit more specific stuff, you can resolve this Gatsby plugin. That's the name. And I want to pass it some options. So this file source utils typography, which is clearly missing from over here, but I'm doing that to prove a point. So I'll run Gatsby develop again. When you make changes to that config file, you have to stop and restart it because it's kind of like built into the backend. But if you're editing React components and the pages and things like that, it'll hot reload. And so we'll get there in a minute. This says that it generating the SSR bundle failed. It can't resolve the typography file. And actually, it's in this cache thing off to the right. And I hit that yesterday and thought, what in the world? And it's because in my config file, I said there's a config module in this source utils typography thing, but it ain't there. So I'll go here and I'll create a utils folder and a JS file, and then I'm going to import. Again, this is all from their sample documentation, so I'm going to go kind of fast here, but import this stuff. So this is saying import the theme and the thing and export typography so that when it needs to resolve it, it can. Oh man, trying to do this on 2 screens is messing with my brain. Okay, so I'm going to hit Gatsby develop again, and then I won't need to stop and restart that. again for a few minutes. So let this spin up. Building development bundle. Done. Okay, cool. So now if I come back to 8,000, yeah, I was looking, cool, it's styled. So the font did change. Before it was Arial, and now it's whatever that is. That's not very exciting. So let's do something fun. We're going to create a layout. And we're going to start using that layout everywhere. And this is pretty standard React stuff, but I'll get to the point in a minute. So I'm going to make a components folder, layout.js file, paste this in there, hit save. I've already got a source index page. I'm going to replace that boring thing with this. And you can see here I'm pulling in the layout from the components. Again, pretty standard React kind of stuff. If I switch back over here, boom, styled. The page's lunch is the title. There's like the main title of the page, yo. There's an about link to it, and you can't see it at the bottom, but it's localhost/about. If I click on that, I don't have that page yet. So 404s. So let's go fix that. Calc this. Make a new file. Come on, Rob. JS. Paste this in there. Save. Flip back. Click about. Sorry, I forgot you have to hard refresh. So that I created an about.js file. Hard refresh. And boom. Now I've got an about page. I have 5 kids that get hungry. Feed them pizza. True story. Let's get to the GraphQL part because I think this is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the server because I need to make a config change. Switch back over here. Not to that. That's config. This is going to look the exact same except for one thing. I added a site metadata property with an author and a title. If you look here in about the page's launch, that's hard-coded in there. That's lame. Index also has it. Blech, that's gross. We don't ever want to do that. And in layout, I have it here too. So that thing is literally everywhere. I don't want to do that. I want to do this the cool way, like the cool kids do. So I'm going to run this server again because I had to modify the config. I had to stop it and start it again. Cool. Okay. And if I come over here and go to GraphQL, hello. Look at this. In my Query Explorer, I've got a site, and I got a site metadata thing. I got an author and a title, and I knew I was going to do this when I was practicing yesterday, so forget I was exploring that part of it. I meant to go down here to this guy and check off author and title. And actually, I'm going to, really bugs me that that's still there. Sorry. Site metadata, author, title, host, port. That's the GraphQL that I can run against my server to pull this data out. And if you run this, boom, there's my name, the page is launched. Awesome. That's very cool. Now let's use that. So if I go back here to my layout, that's where one of those titles was. Oh, cool, I'm already on it. Highlight that, replace it, flip back. So, localhost 8,000, written by me, the page is lunch. What I did in that layout file was I added this static query using GraphQL. I literally pasted that query from the Explorer in here, and then in my, so that's the constant data. Then I get down here, I get data, site, metadata, field, title. It's just going down this tree. I added this to a footer, data site host, data site pour, written by author. I'm going to go ahead and update index.js to include a GraphQL query. So instead of saying yo, it's going to say data site metadata title using that same query. I'm going to update the about page to do the exact same thing. Again, I'm just highlighting and replacing the specific spot. So export default, I'm going to pass in data. Data comes from this query. This is one thing I did not understand and do not understand even in this moment. It's export const query from a GraphQL, but you call it data here. I don't know. That's okay though. So then if I flip back to my site and hard refresh it, it literally looks like nothing changed, right? But watch this. If I go back here to my Gatsby config and I change this to my wife's name, and I add a whole bunch of H's here because that's silly, and flip back here, look, my wife's name's there, a bunch of H's, and all my pages updated using that query. It happened so fast, so magical, that I couldn't even save and go back fast enough. So like save, boom, like look, it put it back already, which is pretty cool. That's pretty standard React kind of stuff. I just like that it's using GraphQL. I know this is taking a lot longer than I had intended, so let me kill this. I'm going to install something called the Gatsby source file system and the Gatsby transformer JSON. What that's going to do is allow me to read files from my computer and then transform it into JSON into something that Gatsby can read, and I'll show you what that does in a second. So we'll install that and wait again. While that's happening, I'm actually going to jump ahead and replace this with, so here's the exact same thing we had before. Site metadata, the plugins, I added the Gatsby transformer JSON. The typography thing is down here. There's this new guy I needed to help out a little bit with. So I'm adding the Gatsby source file system. I want it to name what I give it as data, and I'm giving it a dir name, that's where I am now, or where the app runs, excuse me, in a source data folder. So if I come in here to source, and I add a folder, you're all probably wondering what in the world does this have to do with pizza and feeding my kids lunch, but I'm getting there. Maybe you're not. I am. And I'm the one that wrote this. I'm going to make a JSON file called pizzas. I'm going to paste in, these are 4 types of pizzas that we like to feed our kids. What's the cook time? What's the temperature? That's what's on the box. That's what I always throw away, and I never know. Tara's like, oh my goodness, please don't throw the box away until I'm done. This is real life conversation. So I added some images for displaying where we get some Papa Murphy's pizza. I have this one memorized, but it's cook time of 12 minutes. 425 degrees, blah, 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 whatever. Is this done in PM installing? Cool. Because I already modified that config file, I'm just going to hit Gatsby develop. Come on. Cool, ignore that warning. Nobody cares. So if I go here to my GraphQL, check this out. Look at this. All pizzas. What? If I go to edges, come on, node, look at this. I got my cook time, I got my image URL, name, slug, temperature. I got a GraphQL query that I can execute, and it pulls in my pizzas. Check this out. I can go to, take this site thing off because I don't care about that right now. If I go to all pizzas, I can add a filter where the slug equals something. If I run this again, it's going to give me all my pizzas. Or none of my pizzas, because empty string. The slug is blank. Sorry, none of my slugs are blank. But if I go to Papa Murphy's, you can hit Control-Enter here and run it. Look, I got the one. I think that's pretty standard GraphQL stuff. This is new to me. And actually, spoiler, it's one of the other ThoughtWorks topics, but 2 for 1. So anyways, this is cool because I can use this to make this data on the Papa Murphy's page, or I can not have a filter. There's no way I'm going to get that right if I try to just backspace it. Shoot. Like that. Okay. There's all 4 of them. Awesome. I think that's really cool. I've got a JSON file. This is going to work perfectly for me. I could also just not throw the box away, but that's boring. So let's go back here. I'm going to update my index page. And instead of that, So here's what I did. I replaced that query with an all pizzas JSON edges node name and slug. And then I'm going to say for each pizza JSON edge, map the node to, so I've got it in a UL tag. I'm going to make a LI, a link for each one of these. And it's going to be a link, the LI list item will have a link in it to the pizza and the slug and display it, whatever, in the node, which is the pizza name. So if I save that and go back here and hard refresh the index, look at that. It generated, and if I hover over this, in the bottom it says localhost 8000 pizza Papa Murphy's. Sweet. Look at that, I got a link based off of JSON data. I can click this, 404. There's no Papa Murphy's page yet. Here's where like the coolest thing happens. I'm getting really nervous, excited talking about this. Because I'm a dork. Okay. Let's go back here. Sorry. What we're going to do is we're going to create a template page that Gatsby can use. I don't think I have to kill that. So I'm going to make a file called, in my source folder, templates. This is a template that Gatsby will use to generate a pizza page. I'll fix it in a second. Thank you for keeping me honest. There, sweet. So this is the template I'm going to use to generate a pizza page. Now, again, standard React component kind of thing. The query is, if the slug I get equals the slug, that's what I just showed you. Cook time, image URL, blah, blah, blah. The pizza, I'm going to get the first node, the 0th edge, there's only one. The node that I passed in based on this query, and display a header, and you'll see all that in a second. Okay, that's great. How in the world is Gatsby going to know that it needs to generate a page, and how does it generate a page, and how does it get that URL generated and all that fun stuff? I'm going to come over here, collapse this, and next to this, so I should have stopped this. I'm going to stop that for a second. Come over here, I'm going to create a Gatsby, hey, I typed it the first time, node file. And this is literally how do you generate a node, Gatsby. And this says, I'm going to create a page, and that's one of the actions, the actions it passes in from the create pages. This is all Gatsby stuff. The pizza template is my template that I just made, and this is wrong. Capital P. Query this thing, await for it. If I don't have an error, get all the edges, and then for each pizza, create a page. The path is going to be this pizza node slug using that template, and the context is what you pass into that page, is the slug. And that is going to hook into that GraphQL query on the page to say which one do I need. So I save that. In my notes, it literally says stop server and restart, and then show off. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. I don't think I mean show off like to show it off. One more time with this. Come on. All right, perfect. If I hard refresh this, I don't know what I just hit there, but now if I hover over this and click on it, boom. I didn't make a Papa Murphy's page. Gatsby did that for me using my data. So Papa Murphy's, there's a cool image. I pulled in the cook time and the temperature. It's all using that theme. Great, cool, whatever. There they are. One more thing I wanted to show off. And almost every time I do a presentation, I have to include some Disney reference. So I'm going to do that now. Over here, hold on, sorry. Make sure I'm on the index. Cool. Okay. Going to my pizzas JSON. I'm going to add a fifth pizza. There's a ride at Disney World called the Carousel of Progress where they burn the turkey and they cook it at 975 degrees. It's a stupid reference, but who cares? If I save that or go back over here, it auto-generated a link there and a page. And all I did was add a JSON property, which I think is pretty awesome. I know that you can query markdown files from your file system. So if you're a blogger, that's kind of one of the big things they do. you can write a blog or have a blog with markdown files, edit your markdown files, save a markdown file, and it would show up just like we did using the file system as a new link, and all your blog posts would show up. You can format dates with GraphQL. There's all sorts of crazy stuff you can do. So this is just scratching the surface of not GraphQL, probably that too, but of Gatsby. Would I use this? Maybe depending on my use case. I don't know if I would. It's React, so that was cool. I got to practice that. It seems really powerful, and to be honest, it was kind of overwhelming. They have hundreds of plugins to do different things, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. This is using a static JSON file. I know you can pull in APIs, so I'm going to stop talking there before I start talking about what might happen next week. So that's Gatsby. I'm going to move on now to a different topic, unless there's any questions about this. Just teasing. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, so just one thing that I knew nothing about this really before you started talking, but I looked at a few of the plugins and stuff, and they have, this is also not really a question, sorry, but they have plugins for like MySQL, Contentful, which is a like pure content CMS, and if you haven't picked up on it, like a lot of these plugins basically inject the data from those source systems into GraphQL so that you create this unified interface for which to access all these different like data sources, which is really cool.
Super cool. And it's, when I found a tutorial on, they walked through the Markdown one, but it was something, I don't know. Whenever I found that JSON file from my computer, it's like, wait, it's going to do what? Then that was kind of a light bulb moment and helped me calm down. Yes, sir. What's your question or statement?
I think Troy answered the main thing that I was curious about as far as like the dynamic data comes in, but I just wanted to be clear. So when you were showing one of the final pages when you were configuring the individual that's actually generating a page for the full set of pages for the full set of data at that time, right? So it's not sort of formatting or created.
Right. I'm under the impression, I should say it like that if I were to publish this, GraphQL would build and cache. I think it's in this .cache folder, and I think this is what I was talking to Stephen about earlier today. Somewhere in here, I think, are those pages. I didn't actually know the answer to that, but I bet that's where they are. I think it is caching those so that it knows. I'm doing this live. I bet it's somewhere in here that it actually has those files, and that's why it's so fast. So when I added this new carousel progress turkey, which is not pizza, and hit refresh, I think Gatsby behind the scenes auto-generated that page for me and cached it somewhere to actually have that file be there and loaded. Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. They have a cool website. It's purple. It's dark colors. Background, I like it. I think it's fancy. A lot of people use it. Boom, there you go. You can take Gatsby and put it in a Docker container. I did that yesterday, and that's a perfect segue into what I'm about to talk about next, which is microkates. Microkates is a zero-ops Kubernetes for workstations and edge IoT. A single package of Kates for 42 slave hours of Linux, made for developers and great for edge IoT and appliances. I've heard of this, and I think K3S has another one or something, but basically what this does, if you click on this Get Started link, you can install it. So I did it on Windows, that's what I run. You download this thing called Multipass, which I don't think has anything to do with Blade Runner. When I was Googling what is Multipass, people kept showing me things from Blade Runner, and I was like, Fifth Element, thank you, sorry. Thank you. I have never seen that, so I'm admitting that in public. Anywho, so you download Multipass. Sorry. You can launch, that's fine. I'm not a movie guy. It's a fun conversation my wife and I have. I have no idea who anybody is or what the movies are. You can launch a Multipass instance. This actually downloaded, I'm not going to run through this because I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to demo these downloading things. it created a virtual machine on my computer using 4 gigs of memory and a 40 gig hard drive. Then what I will show you is you can go into, and I don't even know where it is. I didn't spend time figuring out multipass because I needed to do microcates. But it's essentially a virtual machine that is Linux, and then inside of that you install the microcates snap. Because it's Ubuntu, they use these things called snaps instead of apps or whatever. I guess that's kind of a newer thing for Ubuntu. I feel like I should know these things, but I don't. So anyways, you can multipass, get a shell into your microcates VM. You can name that whatever you want, but I just followed that. Then you install microcates classic, and then you wait for it. I won't show you any of that because I already got it set up. Then you can turn on these standard services, and this is really cool. And this is kind of where it was like, oh my gosh, I got to get into this thing now and figure out how to like really understand Kubernetes. And I still don't, even after preparing this presentation. So this could be a little rocky. But anyways, this enables DNS dashboard and registry, which kicked off some deployments and pods and things in my microcates instance. So I will show you all of this. Go back over here. We can stop that. Okay. Really fast, what I wanted to show off is, because I'm on Windows, I can't do fun things like localhost. At least I don't think I can. I wasn't able to when I was trying to prepare this. So I'm going to run this multipass list and list my virtual machines that are running. 172.18.62.105, that IP I'm going to need here in a minute. So that's just, I have it written down or typed down, whatever, I don't need to keep it. So let's go over here. And I'm going to shell into my microcates virtual machine. Hit that command, boom, I'm in Ubuntu. I'm in that virtual machine. There's one zombie process. I don't know what that means. That's fine. I ran this command yesterday, but you can set up IP tables to forward accept something. I think that's how a virtual machine can accept the connections from the outside. I already installed it. I already enabled those things. Then, what they recommend, or what I found you could do, is it in my history here? You can run this. Not that. Hold on. Set an alias. So when you install microcates, it installs microcates, cube control, cube cuddle, cuddle. I don't know how you say it. That guy. It gets real annoying real fast to type that a bunch. So you can set this alias. I've already done this, so I don't have to do it again. Actually, we'll try it and see what happens. Anyways, so microcates, cube cuddle. I'm going to alias it that so I don't have to type that whole thing. Cool, I guess it just ignored it because I already done it, didn't it? I'm going to run this command, hopefully. I'm going to get my Kubernetes nodes. Hey, look, there's only one. It's me. It's been up for 25 hours. He's not that old. That makes sense, right? I'm running Kubernetes. I'm the only guy, computer, running that, so that makes sense. I think, and I apologize if this is boring for those who know and use Kubernetes, but this is, I think, pretty standard stuff. I don't have to go through Kubernetes things, but when I enabled DNS, the dashboard, and the third thing I can never remember, it pulled down these pods, created these services, these deployments, and replica sets. This is all running in that virtual machine on my Windows computer in a Kubernetes contained in that virtual machine, which I could literally just say multipass shut down or stop or whatever the command is, and the whole thing would just be blown away and I could start over. I mean, it's crazy. It's like all this stuff is running in this thing in my computer. So that's the stuff running there. If I run this cluster info, actually, hold on. You'll see that Kubernetes master is running at localhost 16443, and then all these other URLs here. What I can do is show you, actually I've already got it open. So check out this URL, 172.18.61.105, that port, blah, 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 blah. This is Grafana running in this Ubuntu virtual machine as Kubernetes showing up on my Windows computer. Like, man, that's great, whatever. Check this out, though. So I shoved the Gatsby app into a container because that's what we like to do, right? So I'm going to kube control run my UI. That's the image. I had pushed it up to the Docker hub. Weirdly, with Gatsby, I was running that GraphQL locally, and it said host and port. When I tried to put it in the Docker container, it said, I don't know what port is. And so I had to take that part off, actually. So this image, when I show it to you, is going to look a little bit different. The footer will be a little bit different, but whatever. I want to run it on port 80. So it already exists. Great job. Great job. Sorry. Try this again. Okay, so I had to delete it first. Sorry, I thought I'd already done that before I came down here, but so then I clicked run. It said deployments apps UI created. Awesome. I'm going to go here and describe my pods. These are all standard Kubernetes commands. Here are my pods. The image ID I got from Docker. It's running it on port 80. Scheduling, pulling, pulled, created, started. So it started it's very down there at the very bottom. I'm going to expose that through my virtual machine as a node port. I want to name it UI. Of course, it already exists. That's fine. Imagine that worked and it said, yay. I'm going to get all, so here you can see it named it, the pod is UI in this hash. UI deployment app UI, replica set UI. Now, what I should be able to do is take this right here. It says service UI 3. So it's my container. I told it to run this at port 80. It's exposed as 3030300. And there it is. That's the same Gatsby app running as a Docker container using Kubernetes or micro-K8s rather through that virtual machine. And there it is again. Notice the different footer, but it's like same exact app. I think that's basically all I have to show off for micro-K8s because it's Kubernetes and a virtual machine on my computer. Would I use that? I think so. I think that's pretty sweet. You could just spin up a Kubernetes installation, do a bunch of stuff with it. I think you could keep them. It would help you keep things separate. I'm trying to look around the room for some Kubernetes people. I don't see Ben. So, David, yeah, y'all. I think it's pretty cool. Self-contained. Okay, that's all I got for today. Stay tuned for episode 2 next week. The Pages Lunch continues next week.
Hello. All right. I'm going to try to get through this without coughing. We'll see how it goes. Oops. Okay, so I'm doing run cost as architecture fitness function, and this was in the adopt category, and it's a technique. So at best, I'll answer what this is, and not necessarily how to implement it. So run cost is architecture fitness function. Sounds like a bunch of words that they threw together to kind of describe a thing. So it helps if we break this down a little bit. So run cost is basically the cost to run your infrastructure. So in this case, a cloud. So your budget to run a particular application or a suite of apps. Architecture fitness function is borrowed from evolutionary architectures in this book right here. The authors will notice they have some ties with ThoughtWorks. And they describe architecture fitness function in that it provides an objective integrity assessment of some architectural characteristics which may encompass existing verification criteria, such as unit testing, metrics, monitors, and so on. If I can move forward here, there we go. Okay, so if we break that down, first key phrase is architectural characteristics. And if you sat in on the workshop that we hosted here earlier this year with Mark Richards, he described these architecture characteristics as ilities. So we've got affordability, availability, reliability, security, and so on. Those are the architectural characteristics that we want to emphasize in a system when we design it based on the client's requirements. So the other phrase in there is objective integrity assessment. So basically, we just want to test things. We want to measure them objectively to make sure that we're hitting our goals so that we're meeting the client's requirements for these ilities. So to give you an example, I might put a slot in my pipeline if I want to test for maintainability, manageability, and testability. I might throw a test in there that says if test coverage is 85% or below, or there's a maintainability rating of a B or lower, I don't want to pass the build. I want to fail this build. So if that happens, I know that I need to evolve my architecture and to make sure that those tests pass so that I can get the build to production. So that's just an example of an architecture fitness function. So the whole thing, the run cost, there's some tools that allow you to analyze run cost, and I really couldn't get any information as to whether or not you can actually like pipe data into your pipeline to analyze, whether the run cost was going to be over budget and then it would fail to build. I don't know, but there's some pretty advanced tooling that allows you to, push reports to you as far as your budget. So you might have, your architecture may run in both Azure and Google and AWS, and it's able to kind of formulate your monthly or even daily spending, and then it's intelligent enough, most of these are intelligent enough to look at what you're using and let you know if there's any inefficiencies that you could kind of capitalize on and run your stuff cheaper. So that's all I had. Are there any questions? Again, this is just the what, not the how. Tyler. So both, yeah, both. Yeah, most of these tools are smart enough to look at a hybrid environment and let you know, hey, you're better off running this over here, or 60% over here, 40% over here. Yeah. Yep. Right. Yep. Yeah, the architecture fitness functions are really, really interesting. You can trigger them off certain events. You can, have manual intervention. to check them out, and yeah. All right.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, feel free to do what I did when I first saw this on the Tech Radar, which was to just laugh. So, the 10X engineer, the origin of this came from an article or paper, supposedly, written in 1968 that suggested that there was a range of productivity levels where they showed that some people work 10 times as productive. And back then, it could have been simply because of the fact that you were in better physical shape and you could get to the card reader faster than the old people, because this is old. So anyways, as you might expect around this whole thing, like, it's just kind of laughable, right? Like, there's so many things that go into productivity. But on Twitter earlier this year, apparently, there was this person that posted something about a 10X engineer, and the internet just blew up, right? Like, it's this whole idea that there's a lot of people out there that are just waiting to spend inordinate amounts of time trying to, like, create a battle around somebody who posts something completely out of context with very little information that inflames everybody. So this happened with this 10X engineer, and you know there was all kinds of, like, if you can Google for it, there's all kinds of information out there about what it means, blah blah blah. What's that? Yes, yes, and in fact, I found a lot of this content on the website that is like explains memes. Very well organized, very well done. Yes, Dan. Yes, that's why this topic is basically comic relief. I have a video. Hopefully sound comes through. Does it? Should we hear it? That's what I was going to do, but my machine is trying to pump audio. Oh, wait, I know what it is. Hold on. It's this stupid. Okay. Okay, no, don't show that.
I don't know. I think just if you're not working, you're not living. I work on weekends because I believe in success. I just rely on micro naps throughout the day. Don't think what do you want me to do, go blind? Everything in this meeting is obvious, and you're all obviously just less secure than me. I don't think it makes sense to not think in code. Sure, all code is the same. I learn it all the exact same way. I just check.
Okay.
I don't know. I think just if you're not working, you're not living.
Can you guys
I
hear it?
work on weekends because I believe in success. I just rely on micro naps throughout the day. Obviously, my IDE has a dark theme. What do you want me to do? Go blind? Everything in this meeting is obvious, and you're all obviously just less secure than me. I don't think it makes sense to not think in code. Sure, all code is the same. I learn it all the exact same way. I just choose not to write CSS because I'm better than that. I just gobble up new topics. Blockchain is my breakfast. This is blockchain. I don't know, I just can't mentor others because I'll always be better than them. Tests are for people who make mistakes. I don't apply to jobs. Jobs apply to me. Communication skills are for people who just aren't right. What do you mean, team player?
Okay, so you get the idea, right? Like, there's just so much fun to be had here. So the real thing, and I just wanted to give a quick plug for a book that I read recently called Deep Work, that is, if you're looking for ways to explore productivity, like probably one of the biggest competitive advantage potential to be had out there is the fact that we are knowledge workers, and if we simply work on eliminating distractions, we could probably be a whole heck of a lot more productive, and I'm pointing finger at me too, because I know when I practice that, it makes a huge difference. So if you want to make way towards 10x, work on great teams, and like don't get distracted all the time. That's all I have to say about that. How am I doing on time? Oh, okay. Nobody's keeping track, then you can't heckle me. Okay. So design systems. This is the first time this showed up on the tech radar. 10x engineer, by the way, in case you weren't, I didn't point this out, but it's in the hold category. Design systems are in trial. This really has to do with the idea that software is really complex. There's so many choices, right? Like the paradox of choice is constantly staring us in the face. So many choices, it can be really frustrating. Design systems try to put some structure around that. And the best advice I can give you is know that these exist, right? So now you can't say you don't know, but go out and Google and look around. There are some good examples, like so material design is a design system. And if you go through, you'll see like they've got guidelines, they've got components, they've got icons, they've got all these assets that if you use this, a lot of choices then are made for you, and you can just leverage those, and you don't have to feel like you've got to come up with all this on your own. Another one, there's tons of these out there, like IBM has one, Airbnb's got one, and they address different things. Like this Shopify one has React components and a UI kit and some GraphQL stuff. So again, that is the main thing here, is know that these exist and know that in looking at them, you might be able to discover how they can help you solve problems for our customers in more efficient ways without having to like reinvent the wheel and come up with a bunch of stuff on your own that takes a lot of time, frankly. Questions? Okay, that's it.
Okay, I chose my second topic as another technique that was promoted as something to be adopted by ThoughtWorks. So this is data integrity at the origin. And the problem arises when writing a web application that you end up consuming a lot of data from other sources, and ultimately you have no way of verifying that that data is any good. So the job comes to then wrap business logic around that data to filter it out, cover it up, prepare it to be better to use in your own application. So what ThoughtWorks is pushing for here is to adopt putting metrics against your data so that you can verify its quality. And ideally this starts at the origin, because when you bring in the data first, you should have the best metric and best reason to verify the metrics of its quality. And so, I guess as a quick example, you may have a simple example as your email. You join a new website, you create credentials, you're asked to verify your email. When you click the email that comes in, the button takes you back to the website. They've now verified that your email is at least a legit email. And then, so as the origin, your job is to provide the metrics in your own business logic to validate the data, and then if you're consuming, take their metrics, but also revalidate it so that you know that you're providing quality data. Any questions? Just a boring technique. All right.
Yep, okay. Okay. So I'm doing container security scanning, which is another technique in the adopt category. So important. I think we can all kind of intuitively rock what we're talking about there, but just talk through a little bit, give you some context. You can read it, right? It's just about, it turns out when we use things like Docker and Kubernetes, we are creating new and exciting security problems, in addition to solving new and exciting technical problems. So there's not one thing, there's another. Example of this, Tesla, you guys remember this? It's been maybe, let's see, when does this say? See a date on there? It's like 2018, yeah, about 18 months, 20 months. You guys remember this? Tesla, their entire AWS infrastructure got attacked by malware. And the culprit was a Kubernetes admin API, which was exposed, that showed all the access goodies. So somebody got access to that and did all kinds of crazy fun stuff with it. You guys can read about this at your leisure. It's pretty fun. So as I was looking through this thing, I learned about this. You guys ever heard of this thing? Shodan? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't even know. This is great. Shodan is a way that you can discover which of your devices are connected to the internet, where they are located, and who can use them. Yes. So obviously, this is a really nice tool if you want to find available things on the internet that may be unprotected. So this exists, which means that if you have things on the internet, they are discoverable, especially if they use common ports, common endpoint, URIs, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a fun little thing to explore. I recommend popping in here and just kind of looking around. It's kind of fun. So yeah, obviously with something like this out there, There are tools that can kind of go out and block all the common, ways to index your stuff. So the idea is, ideally, you could include that as part of your continuous delivery, so that this stuff is just being checked as you go. There's a bunch of tools. I'm not going to run them all down. I will say, I looked at this. I thought this was really cool. I don't know if you guys, anybody who cares about security priority knew about this, but there's this nice little benchmark here that talks about this is how you go and secure Kubernetes. If you are using Kubernetes in production or even in development, I would recommend taking a look at this thing. This is just sort of the kind of read up on it and do manual stuff at the bare minimum. But then I just kind of Googled around, and these are kind of the tool example of some tools that you could incorporate into your pipeline, or you can kind of do some automated stuff in production to verify that you're not exposed to stuff like what happened to Tesla. We don't want that for any of our clients. So yeah, any questions? Yeah, all right, we nailed it. All right, so one more thing. Since that was it for this week, and we made it through all 11, we still have 13 for next week. I'm going to pop them up here. Doug was kind enough to send it to Slack, so I can use that. I can bigify that? Probably. All right, so you see what we went through today. This is some of these, I just kind of highlight in case, 12:20, you might be thinking, I got to get some Christmas shopping done. Well, just remember that Don Taggart's going to be talking about TensorFlow. So you might want to balance, we got a couple more React talks. Graal VM, there's been a theme here with the Graal-based stuff. Joel's going to do micro front end, so a lot of good stuff next week. You'll notice these two at the bottom are still open. Like for someone to take one of these two. If anybody is feeling game, let me know. Christy? Oh, yeah, she could do React style guide this year. That'd be great. Anything else? Yeah. Yep. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Cue the Christmas music.